One of the first things you're taught in drawing or painting is to paint what you see. For example, if you ask somebody to draw an eye that has no drawing experience, they're most likely going to draw it in that typical almond shape. And they're doing this because for some reason in their mind, that is the shape of an eye. Instead of actually looking at the eye and breaking it down into its abstract shapes and really seeing what is going on. This is the same reason why it's helpful to draw or paint upside down. Because when it's upside down, you're not seeing the object, you're just seeing the shapes. And your mind can't trick you and fill in gaps and tell you what you're seeing. At some point on every portrait that I do, I work on it upside down to get a fresh look at the shapes and to cut off my mind from tricking my eyes. So then why are we told to study form? Study anatomy, the form of the face, the planes of the face, the form and structure of the features. Shouldn't we be able to just look at something and draw or paint what we see? This is what I thought for a very long time. I was pretty good at drawing and painting what I saw, so I thought, why do I need to learn anatomy? Why do I need to understand the form of the face and break everything down into planes? I can just see it and paint what I see. It wasn't until I realized that these two ideas actually work together. The more you know about the form, the more you're gonna be able to see. I always liken it to finding animal shapes in clouds. If I can see the shape of an animal in the clouds and I ask you to find the animal shape that I'm looking for, you probably won't be able to find it. But if I were to say I see an elephant in those clouds, then you're gonna be looking for an elephant and you're probably going to find that in the clouds. For example, with this portrait, this whole area of the face can look very similar in color and value, but if you know that there is a plane change right here, it can help you pick up on a color and value shift. Another portrait example is the nose, understanding that you can break the nose down into 4 basic planes, the 2 side planes, the top plane or like the bridge of the nose, and then the bottom plane. And knowing that these planes are gonna have different values can help you pick up very subtle shifts in value when you're painting. For example, in this nose study from my portrait course, there is a very subtle value shift from the left side plane of the nose and the bridge of the nose. That left side plane is just a little bit darker. And if I didn't know that going in, I probably wouldn't catch it. Understanding form can also make complicated subjects seem less complicated. For example, with this rose, there's a whole bunch of petals that can get pretty confusing, but if you understand the general overall structure and form of the flower, which is more like a sphere, it will help you organize your colors and values. I talked about this in a previous video, but just establishing that basic form in an underpainting or with just flat color will help so much when you do put on those details. A lot of people go into painting flowers just thinking about trying to get the exact colors that they see in all the little shapes, and they forget about the overall form, which is why a lot of people's flowers end up just like a jumbled mess of colors that aren't really reading. Understanding form is very helpful with landscapes, especially when painting trees, because when you see trees, it's like a whole bunch of leaves, and it's easy to think about the tree as a tree trunk with branches and a whole bunch of individual leaves. If you think about all the leaves and everything as just one solid form that's getting hit with light, and there's a light side and a shadowed side, it's gonna make it easier for you to choose where to put certain colors and values. And not just the overall tree shape, but also the clusters of leaves. In this tree, I was very aware of the form, and that heavily influenced where I decided to put light and shadow. I didn't go 100% exactly what I saw in the photograph, because a lot of times trees and leaves in particular, they don't photograph well, and it's hard to see the form in a photograph. It's a lot easier in person. So I had to draw on my knowledge of what I knew about the form of the tree and where the light's coming from and where shadows would be and where lighter parts would be. Knowing form also gives you more freedom. Since I knew where the light was coming from, I knew the form of the tree, I didn't feel like I need to copy it exactly how I saw it. I could move and manipulate things the way I wanted. Now, this idea of using what you know to see more also comes into play when identifying colors and values, not just the shape and the drawing of it, but for example, with landscapes, I know in my head that most likely the sky is going to be the lightest plane, followed by the ground plane, and then any slanted planes like hills or mountains are gonna be a little bit darker. And the darkest thing is gonna be any upright objects, things like trees, people, houses. And just knowing that going into a landscape will help me figure out the value relationships. Because sometimes it can be hard to tell, especially if you're going by a photograph. You can't 100% go by the values you see in a photograph when painting a landscape. Now, sticking with landscapes, an example with color is atmospheric perspective. Knowing that certain colors drop out in objects the further it gets away from you will help you see more and pick up on more. This is why mountains in the distance seem so much cooler, blues and purples. You're gonna find more reds and yellows closer to you in a scene than further away. And again, this can be hard to pick up in a photo. I feel like atmospheric perspective gets lost a lot in photos. So you can use this knowledge to fill in those gaps. But next time you're outside and you can see a good distance away, compare things. Look at a tree that's close to you, go like this and try and, maybe isolate just the color and compare it to a tree that's a lot further away. You'll see that further away tree, it's a lot cooler. The color's not as saturated. The difference between light and shadow are a lot closer together. And since you watch this video and you know that, you'll probably be able to pick up on it a lot more. And again, this will give you more freedom when you paint. Maybe something in the photo or in life doesn't look that far away, but you think, oh, for this painting, it actually looked better if these trees looked a lot further away. So I'm going to desaturate the color a little bit, cool down the color a little bit, bring the values closer together and set this group of trees further back, and it's gonna add more depth to the painting. I've also found that using what you know to enhance what you see is really helpful with reflected light. For example, with this pepper, you might look at that color of reflected light and be like, what is that? What color is that? And it can kind of trip you up a little bit. But if you realize that that color is being reflected from the ground and the ground is this light blue, then you can know, okay, maybe I should mix some of my ground color with some of my pepper color, and that'd be a good place to start to find the right color for this reflected light. Same thing whenever you're painting cars. A lot of times the roof of cars are reflecting whatever color the sky is. So knowing that going into a painting will make painting cars that much easier. All right, hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, leave those in the comment section. I always like seeing people's questions. It also gives me ideas for future videos. And if you would like to see what I'm painting on a daily basis, you can follow me on Instagram at Forza43. I'm Chris Fornatero, here telling you to go get painting.